Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Trish.
Mrs. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Mr. Moraro?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here.
We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Is there any questions on the agenda? If not, I need a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda. Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Moraro?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 2nd, 2020, special meeting of March 3rd, 2020. Any questions or comments on the minutes? If not, I need a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting and the special meeting.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Moraro?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Approval of the manifest 2020-06. Did you have any questions?
I have no questions tonight.
Brett?
I have none.
Jeff?
None.
Lee?
Police Department, page 2, about a third down. That's a lot of ammunition that the police department bought, 45 caliber. Like I said with the tasers, I hope they don't have to use it.
Which page, Lee?
Page 2. $314 worth, 45 cal. Again, like I said, I hope they don't have to use it.
I believe most of that's for training.
Yeah, I figured that.
They do quite a bit of training and shooting.
Yeah, just wanted to mention it. Department of Public Works, halfway down Dickinson County Health, drug screen, lab analysis. How come there's 2 of them there for, I'm assuming that's our new hiree? Yes, that one is, I mean, the numbers are the same, it's just one's 113 and one is 73. Is it 2 different tests they give them?
Probably.
Yeah, no, I'd have to look at the
We'll have to
invoice.
look at the invoice.
Anybody get a random this week?
His name's on both.
Oh, his name's on it.
Okay, I can add one more item here. On the last page there, 6 of 7, on the last page, about a third of the way down, all these taxes that we paid out, due to Norway Vulcan Seniors, the senior center there, winter taxes $5,677.27. Now, that's our second payment to them, isn't it, Mary?
This was the final payment.
This is the final. Is it the second one or the third one?
It is, that we paid in December, but probably been the third one.
Third one, okay. Then, what's the total? Do you have that offhand?
I don't.
What
I
they're
have
collecting
it
on
now,
that?
so I don't
Okay.
have it on me.
I'll stop in,
Okay.
check with you. That's all I have.
I have one under the electric utility. The training for the metering, are we still going to that, or is that canceled?
No, that's canceled.
That's what I figured. That was all I had. Do I have a motion on the manifest?
I'll make a motion to approve manifest number 2020-06 in the amount of $509,629.33.
Support.
Mr. Moraro?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we had a couple questions from previous meeting. Thought it'd be a good time to answer those. Follow up again for the calcium flakes. That pallet, we use those flakes for sewers, for catch basins. There was only a couple bags that were used for City Hall, but the rest was used for, we do that every year. And that Eagle Electronics, those filters are for trapping out if you have TV only or internet only. So those are pretty standard buys for us, get those filters. The FDS bill was for the vibration sensors at the hydro, and the second bill, which was $125, that was for the maintenance pump checks for the SCADA.
By the way, I don't understand, there should be a way in today's IP world where filters aren't needed at the level of filtering out services that aren't subscribed for. You should have Jim talk to our VoIP provider, internet provider, you know, who's ever, Packerland, I'm guessing, we getting that stuff to Packerland?
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to them, because that should be done at the router level. You don't have to spend, I don't know how much on that stuff we spend either, but.
Anyone wishing to address the council on an agenda item shall do so now at the podium. State your name and address for the record. We'll move on to appointments and presentation. Second reading, ordinance number 435. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. The second reading is for the snowmobile ordinance. City Attorney and I got together. We went through our first reading ordinance and updated ordinance 435 to account for some comments that were made at our previous meeting. I think we think we've covered it now within this ordinance to identify, clarify, and allow for the use as prescribed by the council at the last meeting. So if we can entertain any questions. I don't, Grant, if you had anything you wanted to specifically point out?
Ray and I did kind of, I don't want to say gut, but we went through and made some significant changes to the last one that was in place. That was pulled from a couple different communities, and we went through and really tried to narrow it down and get a little bit more to the point and think about rational, reasonable uses that we would anticipate with snowmobiles in our area. Thankfully, we did have a good winter, and I think we saw an uptick in the local motel and some folks riding around here. When we have snow, we have some of the best trails in the UP, in the southern UP here, and I think we had the benefit of that. One of the things, I suppose, just some of the specifics that we did put in, and looking for some of the council feedback. On paragraph 4, did put in a limitations of operations between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. That was not based on any particular rationale as far as, you know, we didn't want to have it 24 hours a day open. I think if snowmobiles are going up and down the alleys, we want to have and be respectful of the citizens that might have some traffic. I don't know how often we're going to have some of these issues, but again, we're trying to anticipate it. Snowmobiles are getting quieter with the use of 4-stroke engines. However, some still do have exhaust that do and can present a little bit of an issue with some of their noises in the area. But we thought 11 to 5 p.m. if we minimized it, I think that would be something I think that respectful of the citizens that do live in the alleys that might have higher traffic.
How'd you come up with 11? Don't our gas stations and everything close at 10?
It literally was thinking that the gas station issues, we do have, we're lucky enough to be on the trail with some of our local dining and bar establishments. Okay. And sometimes, you know, the old say nothing good happens after midnight or 2 a.m., but at the same time, 10 sometimes can be a little bit early. So we moved to 11 was the recommendation, but it's not a hard and fast. I think I think if I remember correctly, Munising, and this is more an experience and review, but I think there are time constraints there as well. Same thing in Houghton, up in the Keweenaw, there are time constraints as far as when they want you off the trails. Also, you referenced, and you can see that we have in paragraph H, noise restrictions. In the Michigan DNR code, there is some noise restrictions that are in place, but they've drafted a little bit better language than we would, so we just simply referenced it. Additionally, and finally, I believe we have in here paragraph 2A5, if you're traveling within the alleys, sometimes you'll see language that says at a speed sufficient enough to maintain forward momentum. which leaves a little bit to the imagination, or how slow is that? We put it 15 miles per hour, which is still a relatively slow speed, but yet a reasonable speed. So we did add in 15 miles per hour. Again, that was just based upon a discussion and a common sense review of some of the other ordinances as well.
Yeah, I'd still like to see under section 4, item C, I'd like to see some language where, we don't have them crossing at right angles, Main Street, between possibly like 4th Avenue and Railroad.
And Councilman Morrow, we did discuss that a little bit, and we're trying to address with the snowmobile trail here on Main Street, right over.
I understand.
So that's one of the things we were looking at was, and Ray and I were playing with some of the language regarding inclusion versus exclusionary language, and that's something we were looking at.
That's a great crossing, I think, cross on Railroad, obviously, right?
And that-
But I don't think they have to cross any further than like the Norway Church, right? It should be coming through there.
Correct. And that's where we, again, we thought we'd get it as narrowed down as we could and bring it to council.
The Catholic Church, sorry.
And we were discussing the same thing. As you can see in paragraph 3C, we looked and saw, with the artery and kind of the main trail over here by the Night Owl area, the viaduct at the end, running alleys from, the US 2 kind of cuts us in half. You run alleys all down to like Railroad Avenue. It's a common corridor from Railroad Avenue down. So we could see, the alleys being utilized to get to Railroad Avenue and then down to the main trail. And we want them off, we don't want folks up on Main Street either as well. So, and we did discuss kind of adding some additional language, but we wanted to hear from the council before we went that next step.
I may be getting off base a little bit here, but why let snowmobiles go down alleys and not side-bys?
Done what?
Side-bys, 4x4s. They're not allowed to go down alleys. And I don't want to go on US 8 or US 2 to get to, like, Chris Doyle. You can't get there without going down an alley, if you just want to stay off the highway.
But side-by-sides are allowed to go on city streets, except for Main Street, right?
City streets, but not alleys.
Otherwise you have to use the
So-
alley.
It's a lot easier.
So the theory, the rationale with that, Lee, is for snowmobiles, I wouldn't want to be on the street anyway, because we keep our
Right.
streets
I
really
agree.
clear, so, you have them in the alley, and the alleys can accommodate them. But in the summertime with 4x4s and four-wheelers, people are in their backyards, dust, so we'd rather have them on the street to run like a normal normal vehicle, and keep them out of the alleys for that reason. You'd have more disruption. Now, as far as like, if you were going to Chris Doyle to get gas, you could go down Saginaw and then cut across the parking lot. And that particular alley is paved, but you wouldn't have the dust problem, but you still have possible noise. But, it gets down to complaints too.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever registered a complaint for anybody going dropping.
Yeah, I haven't heard of anything either, I'm just wondering.
I think they're finding their way there. I'm assuming that without too much difficulty.
Okay.
And Councilman Morrow, just to understand what you're saying regarding the Main Street, the way we drafted it, and perhaps sometimes, if you're reading it that way, I think it bears the further discussion regarding being more specific again. The way it was drafted with A1, our streets are not allowed to operate. We start with the general premise that you cannot operate a snowmobile on the city streets, period. And A1 allows alleys. So we're saying we allow it in alleys. So streets are prohibited in general, and across the board. Alleys are allowed, and then it talks about the general regulations. And 3 references a few of the exceptions, which is simply to cross at right angles or right on the northerly side of Railroad Avenue between US 2 and Main Street. So I think your point is very well made, sir, that if you're reading it, that we should be more clear and just say, we don't want them on Main Street. It's implied, but the devil's in the details, and I take your comments, and we'll add that.
I like what you did with item C under 4. You called out US 2 and US 8 by name, let's just call it Main Street as well.
Fair enough. We'll add that to that. I think that's a good comment.
Yeah, so, just like Attorney Carlson mentioned, there's no way they could legally cross, this is our thought, there's no way they could legally cross Main Street because they'd have to get on the avenue to do it, and that would be illegal, but.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but you got parking lots there, so they figure, I'll just jump through a parking lot on Main Street, and I can just cut across Main Street.
That's
Follow
true.
me?
Yeah.
Because out of an alley.
Yeah.
So, again, without clear language, I can see people doing that. And like I said, I don't even, if they wanted, if you wanted to have them cross down out of the main business district, like past the Catholic Church, it's 2 blocks down that way, coming out of alleys, and, because I get it, they want to go back and forth across US 8, you gotta have that right angle to get across there. And Railroad, I don't have a problem with that personally, but I just don't want to see it between, I think that's 4th Ave there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then,
4th and Railroad.
to Railroad, I don't want to see people coming across, Main Street.
Okay, we'll add that language.
Kind of a consensus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Sounds good.
Thank you,
Do you
sir.
like that?
Yep, sounds good.
Between 4th and Railroad, we'll say?
I think that's 4th, isn't it, right? So
4th
it's
Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4th Avenue.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you for the hard work. You did it for free as a Norway citizen, correct?
I love Norway and I love snowmobiling, so.
Norway Township.
Okay, we'll move on to, if there's no other questions on that, we'll
So just one other, the next step would be for us to schedule a public hearing. I don't see any, being the time of the season, I don't see any urgency to immediately schedule for public hearing, and based on what we're going through, I would recommend that we schedule a public hearing following any of the restrictions that
Yeah.
are currently being. So once
so people
once
can-
that happens, we'll get into this later in the year.
Which is good, because we're coming to the end of it now, so yeah.
I mean,
That's fine.
I just don't want to have a public hearing and then not have the public able to feel like they can come out.
Yeah,
Right, oh yeah, for sure.
that's a good idea. Okay, we'll move on to communications. DTM proposal to build MTB trails.
Hello.
Hello.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jason Morgan, Director with the DTN, and one of the key trail builders and maintainers here in Norway. So, you should all have this proposal in front of you. I'll just kind of step through. Obviously, we're here to seek permission to construct approximately 4 miles of new recreational trail owned by the city during this summer. The map here kind of outlines in pink everything we have proposed. And then the blue is the existing bike path that we're kind of trying to tie into that whole system of trails. As far as previous accomplishments, in 2018, we added 1.5 miles of trail in Marion Park. Then last summer, we added 6 miles of new trail on city land, school forest land, and some private property that butts us up to Piers Gorge Road. And another part of our group actually added the 6 miles of trail on Millie Hill. We're also the ones solely taking care of and maintaining the Fumi Lake trails, so all the grooming and maintenance that's happening there is our group as well. So for our 2020 goals, just for the Norway trail system specifically, we have a proposal in with Verso to connect what we have now along the river to Piers Gorge. We're very close on that approval. And then we also have a proposal in with the state of Michigan on the additional 2.5 mile loop in Piers Gorge up above the existing hiking trail. We're at about 9 months in on that proposal, which is where they told us we would be getting an answer. So hopefully we should have that soon. And then we do have approval already to add the climbing trail on Dane Allwine's property, which will make access back up into the trail system much more pleasant for people, because right now the climb is brutal. And then the additional trails on Bear Hunt is all approved. But what we're seeking is highlighted in red. There's a 3 mile loop up here on Norway Hill, and the 1 mile connector trail in the mirror there. In the last 2 bullets, the 5 miles in the school forest on Summit Drive and the 3 miles by Pine Creek Lake has been approved by the school board, so we're moving forward with those. More on the goals is establishing our central trailhead for the Norway Trail at Strawberry Lake. Everything kind of ties there right now. It's a beautiful park and it makes sense to kind of utilize that as the point of departure. And possibly adding like a skilled pump track at Marion Park. And as far as connectivity, I've already spoke to kind of integrating everything with the routes and paved paths that we already have existing in the city. The next slide kind of details the Norway Hill land. This was mapped out in the winter time, so it's subject to change a little bit once we see terrain and obviously work with the mine inspector to make sure we're well within the safe distance there. But it would be roughly 2.5 miles of trail, moderate difficulty. There's some very neat rock features and stuff that would really be great if we could get close enough to highlight and be able to see those features. It's a perfect land for sustained flowy downhills and kind of fun trails, and close proximity to downtown and Strawberry Lake makes a great location for everything. It is noted the fence there we noticed is really degraded, is basically down on this south side. So we worked with the mine inspector on the Millie Hill project as far as we put up new fencing and repaired the damaged sections up there. We could do the same with this property as well. And then in the mirror, it would be just a connection off the existing bike path to connect us up by Norway Spring. We're thinking crossing where the highway is divided would be best, just east of the railroad tracks. And then obviously the spring would be a great stopping out point and kind of draw people there anyway. Once again, we could walk this in the winter, so it appears we're on some nice high ground there, but there could be some short sections of elevated decking, which we would deal with that as we progress here. So next slide kind of goes through the intended uses. Obviously, we're building it for mountain biking, but all of our trails are open for hiking, snowshoeing, and possibly groom and fat bike trails, which we did all winter on what we have established right now. As far as trail building tools, a lot of hand tools, shovels, hoes, rakes, walk behind brush cutter, chainsaw, weed whip, and we are taking delivery on a new Bobcat mini excavator hopefully in the next week or so. The power equipment would be operated only by experienced DTN directors or officers that are covered under our liability insurance.
I was just gonna ask that.
Yep, our policy has been beefed up after dealing with Verso, so anything that happens would be covered.
You guys are covered under your own policy.
Yeah, I think it's $3 million total umbrella policy, I think. But you guys are listed on the policy as well as additional proof. Thank you.
Will you guys be doing all the work yourself?
Yep. I mean, we do have volunteers come out and help, but generally they're just doing the hand tool work with kind of finishing. The main trail work will be myself or Steve Lyle as far as running the equipment.
So,
But you do have volunteers working on the trails?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we would never get much done without extra help.
And this is not going to cost the city anything?
Nope, everything is funded. We actually just got a grant.
Well, I know that, but I just wanted to make it clear if somebody's watching this down the road, you know.
We actually just got like a $3,800 grant to do signage and mapping and stuff for our trails here, so.
Coverage on that. He's gonna have to name us additional.
One question, Jason.
Yep.
Where, looking at this, it looks like you're going to start on top of the hill up there. Where does that start? Is that by our dumping pit there?
Which one here?
On Norway Hill?
Actually comes off right by the sliding hill there. They're going to, I think it's 15.
Yeah. Oh, and then are you going to stay on 16th or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, and then you'll be coming back, okay.
Yep. Like I said, we might see something different when the snow falls.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to tell.
That entrance there made a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's some interesting areas up there.
So as far as sustainability, we build everything to the International Mountain Biking Association standards to try to minimize any impact, minimize erosion and stuff. So the main thing is to keep water off the tread, don't make a super steep run where the water is going to run right down it. And we follow all our trails that we built last year, looking beautiful considering the weather we had, so. And then timing, we expect to work on these projects. Hopefully we're going to start at the south side in the next couple of weeks here, actually, if things go the way they're going. And we want to keep pushing north, so we plan on doing these projects in June if everything's approved. And the trails will be open as soon as they're done and signed and everything's safe, just so that we didn't lose ground and then we can start growing back right away. Signage and mapping and all will be completed before we open the trails, and then the final map and documentation will be provided to you guys. Your answer to the costs, DTM will incur all the costs, and then any liability from trail users would be covered under that Act 451. Basically, as long as you're not charging for access to the trails, you can't be held liable. So in summary, we're seeking permission to construct a 1 mile connector and approximate 3 mile loop on Norway Hill. Like I said earlier, we will work with the county mine inspector to make sure we're safe and help repair any of that fencing just to keep people safe. Any other questions?
Will that interfere with anything that we're doing? No.
No interference.
No, these trails are gonna be marked as expert, medium, old people like me.
Yes, most of the stuff up here will be marked moderate, but just because of the steepness of the terrain, but it should be easily hikeable or bikeable by the average person. The mirror section will be beginner.
Yeah, okay.
So we keep a good mix and we update them on all the mapping apps and mark their difficulty there, so.
Well, you're gonna be going along some fences up there that need repair. It'd be nice if we can get some guys up there too, I hope, and you could give us a hand on that fence, which would be beneficial to you also.
Exactly.
Because there's some deep holes up there.
I don't have the exact number, but I think there was a couple hundred feet of fence that they did up on Millie last summer.
Oh,
So I think they dropped it off on top of the hill and we rolled it down. And there's huge sections there missing and big drop-offs. So you gotta have something to.
no, the mine inspector's been honest a little bit about that. We gotta show
Yeah,
him
you said you
something.
worked pretty closely with Mr.
Yeah,
Smith.
I didn't work with them directly, but our group did.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Do you have any intent, do you have trails footage markers? If somebody's gonna get hurt on the fire chief in Norway and running the emergency services for Norway, do you have footage markers on any of these trails in case somebody goes down?
We do not have footage markers, no.
Problem is looking at your trail network, someone's gonna go down and you have no idea if to know where they are. We could be on the wrong trail going the wrong direction.
Yep.
Are you in thoughts about putting markers in? So we have like, not mile markers, but so many 100 feet apart. This is the trail, this is the number of trail, the number at trail, so we know where to go. Right now, currently, there's nothing.
Yep. We've been talking, we just kind of split our group into committees, so now we have a mapping and signage subcommittee. And that grant we just got, we're going to signing those trails, and we were talking about having like a numbering system for the intersections.
Right, and like I said, because the trail's gonna branch left and right, and
Yeah.
looking, coming on, even by the golf course through here, or coming through Marion Park, well, if we start at Marion Park, we're gonna enter Marion Park for the location, and then we find out we can come off of West Drive.
Yeah.
We won't know that until we have footages, we'll have I think even with the county, with the emergency coordinator for the county to dispatch us, they're gonna require a map that has footages and markings. So they have it in pinpoint, and they're gonna GPS the best they can. If it's a cell phone call, we'll ping the satellite on 911 calls.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do, but we need to get that location because we'll have to have a map so we can lay this out and do that. So,
Yep.
should put some thoughts on that, because I know someone's gonna go down way back in the trail, and we're gonna be still past getting the wheel and push it all the way in. There's nothing to make in there with our equipment, our rescue stuff. We're, looking at your trail system.
Yep, that's a good point, because some of those trails, you could be within a quarter mile of it, but if you take the trail the whole way, it's a mile and a half. you know.
Right, so that's our concern is location, distance, where we are, can we access the golf course and come through off the trail into the golf course area? We need to know whether they're right behind the golf course, and we know which road to take, but we need to figure out locations and those things, so, because I know someone's gonna go somewhere, come down, and it takes us time to find those people. So if we could figure out something to lay out, that would be really appreciative on our part, so we have GPS locations.
Okay.
Because once you do this map and they put it on, and we're not gonna know it, we're just gonna ping a satellite that's gonna push you in the middle of the grass area.
Yep, exactly.
That's all they'll see in the area when happy when they try it.
That's a great question, David. I didn't even think about that, but that's a
Yeah,
good thing
I mean-
that you're bringing up.
You could say intermediate and skilled and advanced, people don't need signs.
Yep.
They're gonna go try it. It's just gonna happen. And then that's our location, and, down by the gorge, I'd love to see that trail and get a good layout of that one. Because, rope rescue would have to come from Wright Township, if they want to certify for rope rescue to get somebody else.
That one by the gorge is actually up a ball and plateau above.
Right.
So it's actually pretty mild there, but,
Things like that that we need to, look at, all that's going on. I know from experience, someone's gonna go where they should be, and, okay, here we are, how do we get to them?
yeah. I can sit down with you some day if you get time and,
Sure.
get some ideas together on what you guys need.
Right, and like I said, the system, the ping satellites, we can get the location,
Yep.
then we have to put that on a map. So if you have my location that somebody went by or someone's on the trail with them, give us a footage marker, cut a couple hundred feet apart, at least, we pass this marker number, be on a map, okay, they're in this area, we know where to go, now we can coordinate our efforts. So we need to probably look into doing that, okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
So, one of the questions that was brought up earlier was about the liability, and I think you mentioned it about Public Act 451.
Yep.
So you laid it out, I mean,
Yeah, basically, no liability to the city for any trail user, and any liability from us getting hurt is covered under our insurance, so.
It concerns me with the volunteers a little bit, Jason. How does your insurance company cover obviously they're not employees,
Yep,
right? So how do you get that covered?
I will have to check into that. I will let you know.
are you, you're asking for some action tonight, right?
Build season is coming, I think, so. If at all possible, or if we need to do something else.
Basically, you need permission to go ahead with this.
Yep.
I'll make the motion that we go for it.
I think it's great what you guys are doing. I would like to have contingency on the liability piece though.
And if there's an issue with
Before we,
volunteers,
approve.
honestly, it's normally myself and Steve Lyle are
Understand.
the only ones there, so we're basically planning if we're the only ones doing it, but it's nice to, I'm a committee chair with the Boy Scout troop, so sometimes I'll let them come out for their service hours, and blow the leaves or help out, so.
As directors in a company, you guys are excluded, or you can sign a waiver of exclusion
Yep.
for comp. Unpaid volunteers probably, but you definitely want to, for your own protection as well. If somebody's out there working for you on a trail and the worker gets hurt doing
Yep.
on the job, you want to, you want to definitely dig into that, because that's not a general liability situation, that's a comp situation.
I think it's been dug into, but I just don't know off the top of my head, so I will get the answer and get back to
I
you.
appreciate that.
Down by the mirror, is there going to be any issues with being a wetland?
I wouldn't think so, like I said, what we walked appears to be nice high ground, and we don't believe we'll need any bridging, and that's when you need a permit for it, but, if at all possible to get through it, and we're gonna check as soon as we get a good melt off, and that'll be the worst it's gonna be, right? So, we should know more then.
You're going to need to, or we're going to need to work with the Dickinson County Conservation District, because there are some restrictions within the MIR for equipment,
Okay,
and that's just that 40-acre piece.
okay.
And I am not against it, Lee, but I think there's some questions there for stuff like that where, you know, I think we should get some answers first for down in that wet area and
Well,
them kind of things.
the part, though, that there's the old, the construction road, when they went east, or they went west from where you come on,
Yep.
for the trail, and there's where we have our current path, that we should really need very little work. I mean, that should be a path already.
Yeah, that whole section.
And that brings you to the
Needs a lot of work.
Yeah.
Just brushing, basically. I don't think we were planning on taking the main through there, so.
Right. So then when you get to the corner where it makes the turn south, and you hit that, it's right at the corner of the property.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be and that's wet, you know, so then you probably will be decking that, get off of that into the other parts of the city property. Looked at that a number of times, but
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be an issue, it's just that we have to be aware
Yep.
of, either that or we have to get special permission if you had to bring something through there.
Yep.
I love what you guys are doing for a community, for our area, you know, and that you got the volunteers for this, you and your committee. But I would like to see, you know, just what you got to cover them, your
Okay.
volunteers.
Yep.
So,
I'm for it. As long as you can prove that, I'm for
Not
it.
a problem, just dot the i's, cross the i's, and I'm good.
so do you want him to bring that back to the next meeting, or you want to move forward contingent on that, or how do you want to?
Well, there's a motion on the floor by Lee to go
I
forward.
was just gonna say.
Contingent to what
Yeah,
you
and-
guys were talking about.
And I think there's some contingencies, you know, if Lee is okay with that motion.
Yeah, no problem.
And just knowing them answers
Yeah.
for the next meeting or whatever, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that motion.
Well, I have the motion on the
He
floor.
has that
So I
motion.
have to,
So can we pass this with the contingencies on this information?
What I was going to suggest, or maybe throw out there to the council, we've utilized, this isn't the first time DTN's come before the board. We have an agreement, or a working agreement we've utilized in the past that lays out some of these items. I think, and looking at my notes, I think the council is, as always, on top of things with looking at and considering different things, including some issues regarding wetlands over at the MIR. That was put in place with wetland approval. If my memory serves me, we had the permits. So we want to make sure that we are in compliance with our obligations. We've heard from the mine inspector a couple different times on a number of different issues. Memory serves where as well, Mr. Anderson and I worked with the DNR as well regarding some of the issues up on top of the hill. So I think this is one, and I'm, as the council has indicated, very supportive of something like this happening, and there's a will, there's a way. This is a little bit more unique with some of the areas that are being proposed. So I would suggest that the two options are to approve it with a number of contingencies laid out, or the agreement that we've utilized in the past be drafted to include all the contingencies, work with DTN and have it ready for the next board meeting as well, that has it all laid out. Because I would suggest that you guys would want to have contingencies regarding approval of the DNR if necessary, approval of the mine inspector if necessary, wetland permits and wetland compliance requirements as well. It starts to add a little bit to just a verbal motion, but it's up to the council on how you feel is best.
Well, I'll retract my motion then.
Grant, we may be able to cover some waivers by the volunteers. If we, is that something you could maybe do up? If they just waive liability against the city while they're working on the trails, that would be something we could probably talk about.
That verbiage might be in that city agreement, I didn't think.
We already have something with our insurance company that we've used.
Okay.
I mean, we've dealt with this before.
yeah, because this isn't.
I'd be comfortable with that.
So do you guys want to wait till the next meeting so Grant has it in front of us, so we have a document that we're voting on with everything?
Again, I think we're all in agreement that we're not here to try to make we love what you're doing. We just
Yes,
wanna
and
make
we
sure
appreciate it.
We get everything covered.
Yeah, totally understand.
Would 2 weeks put you guys behind?
No, like I said, we're gonna start with our climbing trail first anyway, so we.
3 weeks, I forgot about that.
That's We have time.
3 weeks?
You sure?
Yeah. We have 4 miles of trail to build across all
Yeah.
lines, so we're good. Hopefully the weather's that nice where we can get it done.
Good luck with that.
Just in time for the wood ticks.
So,
All right. Lee has motion on the
I
floor.
retracted it.
You can't retract
can't?
it. No, but it can die if I don't have a
so, okay.
second. Okay, motion dies. Perfect. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So you're gonna give us a contingency style proposal?
is that enough time for you to come up with everything?
Yeah, we'll be good.
Okay.
Yeah, we have actually an extra week. We got 3 weeks between meetings now.
And we must have the contract
fifth
from
Monday.
last time too. Right? We must have the contract from last time.
We got other we had time.
So just so the council's aware, so I'll work with Mr. Morgan to present a document that has the contingencies that have been indicated and address as many of the concerns as possible. And
Okay.
maybe we do a little legwork, a little digging with the DNR or some of the issues as
I can help
well.
with the insurance stuff too, I just need to see what's out there.
Perfect.
All right.
So-
All right.
Well, if we got the waiver for the city, we wouldn't really need anything.
That's all I really want to see, Mr. Pop, is that waiver and make sure we're clean, we're clear of any,
Yes.
they're volunteering, they're going on our property, they're working on trails, they break a leg, hey, it's on you.
Yep.
Can't
Yep.
sue the city.
I think from what I wrote down, the 2 areas I think we're gonna probably have a little more conversation on than even the liability, because I think that'll shake out, is the
The wetlands?
DEQ, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Eagle, because we have to go through the Conservation District, and it's actually Department of Ag, where we have the restrictions easement, conservation
Weren't we
easement.
gonna
So
have issues
we'll
with
just
that
work
parking
that
lot
out.
over there?
And then the mine inspector, I know you guys worked it out, but I think that's something we could really do well with putting in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Yep,
your
thanks,
hard work and
Thanks for
thank you
everything
for
you're doing,
coming
it's
in. We're gonna move on to the approval of Sturgeon Falls Hydroelectric Plant Assessment Management Program.
Okay, I'd like to ask Scott to come up, Scott Klabunde from HCMS.
Hi, Scott.
Hi.
Welcome back.
So, why don't you, again, explain your proposal? We have a proposal in place to handle the asset management planning and maintenance at our hydro plant. So why don't you explain what's your proposal?
Sure, so, an asset management program. So, small hydro, you have small hydro here, having a program, a capital or a maintenance program based on, or investment program based on an OEM end of life is not really appropriate, because you're running your equipment, and all hydro operators are way beyond what the typical OEM would say life cycle is. Your generators are, the plant is 100 years old, and a lot of the equipment in it as well is quite old and is beyond that. So what this program simply does, it's not very complicated, what it simply does is it makes sure, it goes through all the critical things in the plant, and I've listed some things here. It's not everything, but it would be the things that I would consider to be the critical path items. What I mean by that is, if a failure occurs with one of these items, it's going to cause you a lot of pain. There's safety involved, and there's risk. Safety, there's of course financial risk based on revenue, downtime, and these sorts of things. So what this program simply does is goes through these items, these critical items, and ensures that you have a good condition or a health assessment program for assessing each of these, understand the current condition and the trend, because much of what assessment here with these items is trend over time, right, because we degrade, okay? And then it takes those, it scores those things based on their condition and crosses it to risk, okay? Because again, you have some things down there that you can react to if they do fail, not the planned approach, but this is really for those things that need to be planned, because you need to know not only the condition, but also the pain and the risk that is associated with it. So there's basically 2 items that we're driving at here, is a budget, a capital budget, that represents globally things at the plant that carry this risk. That would be cost, and it would also be again, cross to the risk that you're carrying, and then the preventative program. So those items that are aging, and maybe they don't qualify for the high-risk items, but they certainly qualify for attention, meaning that you want to continue to keep driving the car safely, right? So you can give them more attention on maintenance of these items. So that this program would also augment whatever maintenance program you have, preventative program, to keep the risk where it's at, or to mitigate that risk by some preventative action. Okay? So the concept is I think is quite easy to understand, but there are a lot of components, and there also are, in the hydro industry, there's standards like any industry. So what we'd be doing is assessing these based upon what the industry standard is. Not my opinion, or someone else's opinion. This is what the industry would say with regard to generators. When should they be rewound? What's the current condition? What's the cost? What year would that be in, right? So you get this all laid out in front of you, prioritized based on the risk. When you have various risks, you've got safety, you've got financial risk, compliance risk, those sorts of risks. So you'd be able to look at this and say, this is our dashboard or our window for the next 5, 10, or 30 years. And again, as you go through the process, you find out that we should be doing this, we should be doing more of this with regard to changing oil in the car, as an example. Maybe we should be doing a little more often because of its current condition. To continue, again, the goal is to extend its life. Okay.
That's exactly what I was looking for, personally.
Okay.
I think that we all agree with this, but the plan isn't going to do us any good if we don't follow it. Because we've had plans before with our electrical department to do this and do that, non-hydro related. And council changes and somebody comes along, oh, let's pull out 300 grand for roads or something. So we've got to stick to this, but we're not
We have
here.
money to back it too. Because another thing with the dam, and we've all seen it, unexpected things.
Yeah, we got to
So you-
build up our rainy day fund.
Yeah.
Well, we're hoping this will prevent some of that, right?
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
Especially on the items that, and you can imagine, to rewind a generator.
Yeah, okay, one more thing,
Cost
there's,
associated with that, but also the lost revenue.
Yeah.
Most
Oh, yeah, yeah,
cases is
yeah.
more costly than.
one more comment or question, whatever you want to call it here. The last page, for all the work, we would expect city personnel to be available for plant history questions. Who do we have that's going to do all that? Because our senior electrical man just retired.
I think he might be available at phone, perhaps. I guess that's a question. Because you're right.
I mean, Ray's been here for 20 years, but he's still not a hydro expert, you know?
Well, we could
Doesn't know the whole history of
Talking
it.
about Tim.
Yeah, we could always
Yeah.
take Tim out of retirement, hire him as a consultant for a bit to help with this plan, so.
That would be valuable.
Yeah,
Because he-
those are the lines I was thinking along.
Your future.
Because, part of the assessment is how hard has the car been driven, as an example. We all know, like with brakes, right? You're doing a lot of city driving, your brakes are going to go a lot sooner. It's the same thing with the equipment and the mechanical, electrical equipment. And some of the questions are surrounding past operation and, things like on the generators, there's coils that have been cut out. How many? How often? When were they cut out? Tim would know this, because I don't think it's written down anywhere. So there, it would, not a lot of time, but there are some very critical questions that need to be asked with regard to plant history, right? So that's the important piece. Good question.
You weren't very happy.
No, I'm fine.
And just to address the other, part of the question, you're right. I mean, you need to have some vehicle to continue to drive the program once you get it in place. Testing protocols and make sure that the schedule is made and assignments are made and it's tracked.
It's pretty hard to budget without a plan, right? Especially for something that size. That's
Yeah,
what,
and
Candy mentioned some of the pain in the past. Yeah, you're right, there is some things that pop up, obviously. Hopefully we get ahead of this thing, we start seeing these things through preventive maintenance and end-of-life type scenarios that you're gonna present in this plan, we can then get ahead of the thing and start budgeting for 2025 or 2026 or whatever it's gonna be when the next paying item is coming up. That's kind of how I want it, why I wanted this plan.
Okay. Yeah, and quite frankly, you know, being around the plant, I jotted some things down here. There's some big things coming up. The unit head gates, that's a big project. They're wood, they're unsafe, they do need to be addressed. The canal head gates need to be addressed. That's a financial issue because of head loss that's created with those. And I'm not talking about cleaning, I'm talking about doing some sort of a replacement or upgrade. They're in bad shape, but they're also restricting the flow because of the replacement in the water. Unit 3 generator, not in very good shape, but Unit 4, there's some real issues with that. The powerhouse crane as well. So, you know, there's a need to kind of understand what should be done first with those items. I mean, additionally, we're talking about these 9 items I've listed here with regard to equipment, but there's also some, you know, there's some other things here that are kind of part of this as well. There's a lot of money associated with the upgrades on those items, and, you know, which one is carrying the highest risk, which one makes sense. So, you know, this risk assessment would be, this would be part of that to help steer you towards, you know, limited resources, but you want to be spending them in the areas that carry the highest risk, or they can lower your risk. So that's really what this would be.
You think it's a couple weeks of work?
Well, yeah, you notice I haven't really addressed the rewriting the preventative maintenance program. That's another piece of work, and you know, we need to talk more about the degree of effort on that. What kind of, you know, if you could move forward with that, what kind of you know, tracking program? I mean, there's all kinds of things out there, from just putting it, listing it all in a spreadsheet, to putting it into some database where, you know, it's scheduled itself. You know, we can talk about that at some point as well. At the very least, you're going to get a budget, you're going to get a list of items, you know, some direction on how to make decisions as to what needs to be addressed based upon highest risk.
On the generators, you're gonna have to shut them down to do what you have to do, to see what has to be done?
Well, so part of this is a review. Now, I know there's been testing that's been done. That's a good example. You know, I think you've been faithfully doing every 3 years or 5 years, been doing several tests, electrical tests on those. But I don't think anyone has really been trending that, looking back and saying, is it what's going on, right? Yeah, those are typically shut down to do the testing, but it's a short interval to do the test. But there's just an example where a review of, you know, gathering the information, you know, because the documentation has not been that great, but getting it in one spot, then analyzing it, and then making some recommendations as to where you're currently at. Because I know your generators they're old, they've got a lot of coils that have been cut out in the past, but what do the results of the, you know, there's
Didn't we replace
3, 4
them?
tests that are,
Well,
Yeah.
we did a complete cleaning of the
Yeah.
coils and evaluation testing this past year.
Yeah.
You know, when we had the units down, both 1 and 2. So there might be, I'm sure there's additional tests that you want to see done, but for the short term, I think we're in pretty good shape. When we're going to take both units down this summer, because we have on Unit 1, we're going to be replacing the shaft. And then on Unit 2, we're going to at least go in and get the inspection done for our new runners. So we'll have some opportunity. It may not be on, like I said, on the short term, but through that time period, I think we'll be able to accommodate the testing that you might want to have done, you know, to further test those units. So we have those opportunities. Yeah, I think, again, because of the amount of work we've done, let's just say on the mechanical side of our units, we just tested Unit 3, and, I mean, for that testing, you have to take a look at the documents and how they tested it. It came out spotless. I mean, they said it really looked good. Unit 4 was just fix.
Yeah, my assumption, you would
fix
use, to Ray's point, I think you use some of the things we've already had done, right?
On the short term,
Yeah,
on the
so
short
you've got
term.
the recent tests that Ray's talking about, then you've got the ones that were done, you know,
Yeah.
5 years prior
Right.
to that, and
Yeah.
5
So, and based on our conversation over the last year and a half, you know, I think, you know, this effort on, especially on the short term when we talk, you know, we're gonna look at all of these different projects, potential projects that we're gonna need to budget for, looking at efficiencies along with just the maintenance side. You know, and I think there's, you know, you and I have had that conversation, there's plenty of opportunities there. So, I'm excited to get through and put this plan together, and be part of the overall electric utility plan, because Carlsie's gonna do the same thing on the transmission distribution side. And so,
I agree.
I think it's gonna be a good
We've got
step.
that, we've got the river diversion coming up for the concrete restoration, for instance. Now, that's gonna give us a shot at looking at those gates, I believe. Is that not?
Yeah, well, we'll have, we'll include that as part of this as well. I mean,
Right.
It's all
See,
part
so-
and parcel to
so we're gonna pay for that, we're gonna try to get this stuff put together, right? And economy of scale at work and save some money, right? Instead of having to go back and start that whole process over again for one job, to get two done. That's the kind of thing we're looking
So,
for.
and I do think we have a good start. I mean, through the budget hearing process, well, I don't know, I was gonna ask what kind of a schedule timing are you probably looking at?
Well, the site review is the biggest chunk of time here, to gather the available information and, you know, get it into this,
It's a beautiful place to pitch a tent and camp, you know, you can stay right there,
you know,
especially in the spring.
When, you know, and I spent quite a bit of time with Tim and Ralph and Scott, you know, down there, you know, talking about these things and, you know, so, you know, I've got a good sense. I'm not going into the plant, you know, for the first time. I've been there a lot and had these discussions about where they have felt, you know, the need is with regard to you know, where more effort should be spent and where the risk is. So, you know, like you said, we got a good start on it.
I think we do.
We've had lots of conversations, as you can imagine, for the past couple of years being at the plant for the runner upgrade.
So I think we'll be able to effectively implement through our normal budget process. We're gonna have to refine that as we get into maybe the longer term outlook. But on the short term, we'll definitely be able to have something good for our budget. And we have a good start really on, Lee, what you were saying about having the necessary fund balance to handle problems. I mean, we're sitting at 1.8 right now. So, you know, you got to decide, we're going to have to collectively decide through this process what that amount should look like. But I think we've got a pretty good shot right now.
Scott, I do notice, not to be a nitpicker, but your rate's 175 an hour professional service for your senior tech vendors. I think that's a fair rate for that type of skill set. If you do the math in 80 hours, you come out at 187.50, and we put roughly in there, but just FYI, you're about 12.50 an hour higher than what your rate is if you do the math on the 15,000 divided by 80.
Yeah, and the reason for that is, when I talked to Ray about this, he said, why don't you put some money in there for expenses?
Okay.
So I
that's
put
expenses
$1,000 in there,
Okay,
that's where that comes from.
gotcha.
You know, the expenses aren't gonna be much.
Still probably cheaper than Grant's rate, so.
Well,
Good question, good answer.
Well, yeah, just so you understand what that really means. I mean, that's not really me necessarily. I mean, it's some of that is, but the company that I work for, we have some tremendous resources. We have guys that have been, we've got guys that have been, from the day they got out of college, they've worked in the industry for 40, 50 years.
Understand.
So, you know, and I don't know if you know much about HCMS, but we're a small company, but we're very technically competent. I mean, we work at all the biggest sites in the world, Grand Coulee, biggest generators in the world. We've got expertise. Not that you have a big site here, but in terms of having the ability at my fingertips to get the technical.
Big to us, I know that.
Because I don't know all this stuff, right? When it comes, I don't have all this full complement of mechanical, electrical, but I have my fingertips with the organization and also the the industry organizations that I go on to, I can get it. I have it. So that's what you're paying for.
There you go.
Along with some expenses. And I want to point out too, I put a couple of other things on here that I think might be attractive to you. 1, 2, and 3 there on page 2. City administrative staff training for standard for compliance requirements. I've been doing this for years, this for compliance, and I'll tell you what, when you get you can understand this, when you get when you have your programs in place like you do here, you've got your license, you've got all your compliance programs in place, you're not really creating anything year after year. All you're simply doing is filing reports for the most part. And I'm talking about the standard ones like your emergency action plan, your security, cybersecurity compliance. These are just end of the year requirements. If there was some opportunity for someone on staff here to do those, I would be happy to coach that a little bit.
So does that mean we can get rid of our FERC compliance
No.
fees?
No.
I'd jump on that right now.
And I'm simply talking about the standard, what you're paying for is for someone to help you with more technical issues and things that need. What I'm simply talking about is the run-of-the-mill every year. You can find these reports.
So just to dredge up a little history, when we had a slightly larger staff a number of years ago, we did a lot of that ourselves. Our PERC compliance number cost was down. When a couple individuals left and we didn't replace them, we needed that extra assistance. So I don't disagree with you, but we have to look at, because it's still time consuming. I mean, and we still, I mean, it ties up a couple of our people here, even with the additional help, you know, from our professional service. So.
It's good to know it's available.
Well, I think that's a conversation definitely and worthy of having and seeing what we can physically do.
Yeah, I mean, you run, the chip is, things are pretty tight here. There's some municipals that have people that they're looking for, find stuff for them to do. It's not the case here. But,
No.
Scott, my last question here is, you do leave the preventative maintenance program, the rewrite of that kind of open-ended. Not gonna hold you to it, but are we talking another 15,000, half that, 3 times that to get a maintenance program rewritten?
Well, it depends on what kind of a bite you want to take at that. You know, you're small, you know, you don't need a fancy program with the administrator, you don't need all of that to dump all this stuff into. It could be that, what we might end up with here is a spreadsheet. Might work just fine, because you may only have a limited number of items. There'll be a lot of items, but it might be something that...
It could be a byproduct of the first 15.
Yeah, it'd be something that we could take and, you know, to what degree you want to integrate that into some system. You have a nice HMI or the control system you have at the dam. It's got some abilities, you know, and some of those things can be put right in there.
Right.
Machine hours, red flag, do this, change oil,
Excellent.
that kind of thing. So that, you know, it remains to be seen just how that will look exactly. But I don't think, you know, I don't think we need a huge amount. We can discuss that. And one more thing I want to point out, water use efficiency, just so you understand what that is. You know, in the hydro industry, with these plants here in the Midwest, there's always this debate about how good of a year did we have? Because you have water, you have a good year, you don't have water. What this simply does is it takes all the available water and it's a simple thing to do, but it tracks water that you use through the plant and the water that you don't use. So at the end of the year, you can look back and you can say, okay, how many times during the year was there a availability to run more on a generator and it went down the river? I want to know about it.
Yep.
And you add it all up and you say, look, I don't really need to know upstream gauge, downstream gauge. All I need to know is how much water did we send down the river that we could have generated. What's your rate? Here's your amount. Now you take that amount, break it down into what the reasons were. If they were equipment failure, or what have you, you end up with availability or reliability rate that helps you understand how well you're doing it.
Yes.
So that's what that's about.
I think one of the other areas is the water-to-wire efficiency, looking at the cubic foot per second and seeing, are we as efficient with that amount of water as we can be in generating? You
Yeah,
don't want to
that's
lose
really what that
efficiencies in the
was.
plant, yeah.
That's really what that is, yeah.
Yeah.
So Scott, the 15,000 is to put it together, but what is it gonna cost for the preventive maintenance plan? Is that included in the 15,000 or no?
No, that's a to be decided. And again, once we get all the items listed,
We just talked about that, Candy, too, and we think it may be a byproduct of the original piece, like you said.
yeah, it depends on what you want to do with it.
Right.
And to your point, which is really where this is all going, when you put this together, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to put it in a drawer and forget about it, or you need to have some...
It's got to be used.
No, it's got to be used.
You need to have some way to ensure that, because your operators are limited, they're wearing multiple hats, right? And they just don't have, my opinion is they probably don't have the time to be as thorough as they should with a preventative program, because they're not dedicated completely to the plant, right? You guys know that. So what are you going to do? You could have some way to have somebody independently review this on a periodic basis. I don't know, there are some options, okay? Even internally, maybe you could figure out how to...
It's a maintenance program, it's not brain surgery, right? It comes up there, if the plan says this is gonna be done every 3 months, then the boss, whoever reports to whoever is gonna say, okay, did this get done? No, why not?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, and that sounds so simple, but the problem is these guys are so busy. I was down there and I said, we got other responsibilities, so that's part of the problem, limited resources. So, but, depending on how many items and what we can put into the HMI to make it easier, and to track it and make sure it's getting done, that's what needs to happen. Whatever is the best course of action to make that happen is what I would recommend. Not sure what that is. Not sure what that is.
So the 15,000 is just to collect the data?
Review it, collect it, map it to risk, and prepare a schedule for you. Okay, a budget, which will have these items on it, and it will show you when, based upon their current condition. There might be some pieces missing that we might have to go and get, but based on their current condition, here's the next 30 years.
So we don't have a schedule of when we change the oils and stuff like that?
There has been schedules put together over the years. They haven't been coordinated across the whole facility. So some of the major items have been documented and logged, but we need to go in and look at the whole from top to bottom.
Yeah, let me just speak to that for a second. So there's two pieces to that. One is the capital things. Those are the things, as an example, when you talk about replacing the head gates. That's going to be a very expensive project. There's going to be design for approval, right? That's a capital project, right? And there's, when we talk about rewinding a generator or Unit 3 and Unit 4, those are all going to be considered capital projects, right? Well, how do those line up? When you list all of these things, there's going to be 20, 30, 40 of them probably that are considered capital projects, things that you're going to do replacement or upgrade on. Where are you going to put them, right? You're not going to put them all in the next 3 years or 5. Some are going to be out. There are a couple, like these head gates, because of the safety concern. I know they carry high risk. When you dewater a unit, put guys, below those somewhat rotted wood gates, there's cause for concern, right? So that'll be one of the items that'll be sooner. Maybe that'll be next year, the year after.
How many
There's
millions
that, but let me just speak to the other piece of that is all these maintenance items, okay, that we consider, we can call them preventative maintenance, okay? You put a little oil here, you test the generator, and there's thousands of these types of things that the guys do at the plant, right? So what this is designed to do is to give you that map for the capital, for the improvement, replacement, the dashboard going forward, okay, based upon where the risk is. But going through that entire process, you're going to find out that there's preventative needs as well. Some things that need to be done because of other pieces of equipment that are aging that you're not going to replace, but you're going to, as an example, a car, you're going to change the oil every 3,000 miles instead of 5, right? So that's where you're driving, Candy, is that, that's this preventative piece that I've got here to be determined. That's this list of things. And the guys are doing a lot of those things now. But what we want to do is we want to cross it again to where the need is, right? So if you find out that you're not going to be replacing something, but you want to extend its life, it means you've got to stop the car more often, right? So that's what the preventative program does. It says, okay, we're going to be changing or testing the generator. A good example would be the generators or perhaps the transformers. That's a critical item, okay? When the oil starts to degrade, what you end up doing is you do more frequent testing, right? So you augment your preventative program and you say, we're going to do more testing. We're going to do more data. So again, the whole idea is to minimize, or when you replace, with regard to risk, when you replace an item, you remove the risk because you replaced it. But all these other things are what's described in your maintenance program. How often? What type of testing do you do? And so that's what needs to be developed based upon the health of all the equipment.
Excuse me,
Does
Scott.
that make sense?
Yeah, how many millions of dollars do you guys think you improved since you've been on a board for that dam? Just off the top of your head. Probably quite a few, hey?
Quite a few.
Yeah, quite a few. The perimeter thing is terrific, but nobody here, especially with Tim leaving, it worries me that, again, I believe that place has been, for lack of a better term, kind of seat of pants managed, crisis to crisis, right? Talking $15,000 to get a plan in place to manage an asset that probably, what do you think that asset's worth down there?
20 million.
20 million bucks, 15 grand.
That's a shoot off the top of my head, but, I mean, our insurance is what, 20, 25, I think is what we're talking about.
But you also haven't been around long enough.
Hey, I've been
And
paying
I'm-
the taxes in this town plenty long, and I've seen the screw-ups
That
plenty
has
long.
nothing to do with the taxes, but what I was gonna say, you don't have to get snippy about it.
I'm not being snippy about it.
Things happen down there and they break. I wanna have a plan and stay by it, but if you live in the real world and you know what goes on down there, a lot of things break. And then if it breaks, then our plan sometimes doesn't go through. It's not because we didn't wanna do things like this, it's because that's the way it went. It's just unfortunate. I'm not saying I don't want a plan.
You're right.
And I would like to stick with the plan. But if you're around long enough and things happen like they have before, things break, and they're not like 100,000, it's like, okay, we gotta fix 2 million.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with that.
Kenny, I agree 100%, but we're gonna sit in budget meetings and talk about what kind of money we're gonna set aside for the dam for future years now.
And we have done that.
Right. We're not experts. How the hell do we know what we need to be done?
Right.
We have no clue what's coming up.
Did I disagree with you with that?
Oh, no,
So I don't know why you're yelling towards me, because I haven't disagreed with you with that.
Okay, well, whatever then. So you're in agreement? You're just gonna vote yes? Okay, let's vote.
So let me just give you one example of that financial risk, and I think I spoke to this
Guess
a
you
little
know it all.
when I was here the last time. Those
guess you
head
don't.
gates, because those head gates that I'm talking.
You're talking the
about,
guard
head
locks.
gates, The guard locks, because they're restricting your water, and you do get debris as well, but we went up there and measured that. You have a foot of head loss across all your units. That is a huge amount of revenue loss.
Yeah. And I'm sure when the time comes that we repair them, we're gonna have a lot of hassles with FERC, probably the DNR, and I'm sure the EPA. What do you think, Ray?
Well, yeah, there'll be those issues.
Well, we'll definitely have to go
The point I'm making
through.
to Jeff's comment is that it's not so much that it's been like a crisis management program. I
No.
mean, you guys have done a lot of good things down there. It's what you don't know, but it's also, it's being able to look at it globally, right? Now, as bad as that sounds, we could put numbers to it, you wouldn't have done it anyway, because you've got too much going on down there right now, okay? You've had things that have been more important, like your runner replacement, right? You wouldn't have took it on last year, or the year previous, even the year before that, probably. But what you do need to see, or what I would think you would need to see, is all of these things laid out in on a schedule. You've got your head gates, you've got your powerhouse crane, you've got your concrete, you've got all of the equipment related items, so that you can make the best informed decision, right? You only have so much money, and you're gonna wanna be spending it in the right place, where it's reducing your risk. So that's really what this is going to do for you.
Just so, if we go back, in 2004, we actually put together an electric utility master plan, all right, which included the whole utility, concentrated a lot. At that point, we're really concentrating our thoughts on voltage drops, voltage loss, other areas within the distribution system, and the hydro was operating relatively smoothly at the time. I mean, they had a maintenance plan that was developed over the years with what we had. And then in 2007, our Unit 1 was gone, and we had to completely stop. We immediately went into project mode to replace the units. We evaluated whether we should, we did all sorts of evaluation as to whether we should, let's just scrap the horizontal system and go with a vertical system. Went through all of that evaluation and kept the horizontal, and we moved on. And that 2004 plan then was updated in 2011. Then we had additional problems, so again, it was put on hold. And so I think what I'm trying to lay out here is that we haven't even scratched some of the issues that we recognized in the distribution area from 2004. And so, we hopefully, with the hydro in the shape it's in now, can move in a more holistic approach on our electric utility and address those line improvement areas that we have, but not forget about the hydro. And I think that's where this program is taking that next step. It's like, in the past, we might have fixed something, we might have had a big project, and then we moved on and said, hey, we're good. We won't have to look at that now for, 4 or 5 years or whatever. And I think that's a folly. I think we have to, with this plan, we're gonna continue to look at the hydro, but we have other obligations in the electric utility, and I know we all know that. I'm just trying to give some historical context, because this last 12, 15 years is
A month ago, we
it's been
paid $6,000 for David Engineering to do end-of-line fluctuations and their fluctuations in the system. We're looking at $15,000 to manage a $20 million asset. That's where I'm frustrated. I don't think it's so much of a question. Why isn't it yes and we're moving on?
When you look at this plan, like when you look at your generators, for instance, are you going to be able to tell a curve off of them? Like when they're performing at the highest and when they start to turn back, let's call it, and the efficiency starts to go back, like the coil's going bad or whatever it may be. Are you going to be able to see that with this? Or would that be more into the preventive maintenance, the computer side of it?
So there's 20 different tests you can do on a generator. You're not going to be doing all 20 tests. You're going to be doing what's reasonable and considered appropriate for the size of plan, what you can afford to do. One of those tests is a insulation. It's a value that you get. It tells you how degraded the quality of the insulation is, right? So you get a number, and once you do that test over the course of, and I know you've done it quite a few times already, probably. I know you just did it, as you said, you probably did it 3 years prior to that, 3 years. So you can look at that, and sure, you can determine, once you have a series of points, and you can see that it's headed in a direction that will get you to where you're going to be out of a certain specification and say, look, we need to address this. It may not be next year, but guess what? It's going to get the rate it's going. You're going to be here in 3 years, right? So yes, that's trending, right? That would be a place where you would trend. But on the generator, again, there's other tests as well. There's a there's a visual test. You know, we need to understand, the industry has some guidelines for coils. These are the copper in the generator. When you get a little fault, you can cut that out and wire around it, if you will. It's been done quite a few times, right? But you get to a point to where, you know, you do it so many times, and there's some standards for that, which when we score this stuff, it ranks and it puts it into so we're consistent. We're not just coming up with an opinion. That's my opinion. This is something the industry says, look, you have a high-risk generator because you've cut the coils out this many times, and that is directly an efficiency issue. And you cut it, as you can imagine, you cut a coil out of a generator.
You lose efficiency,
You lose efficiency. You only do that so many times. And there's some dynamic stress going on in the machine because, you know, now you've got a machine that's not, you know, in terms of electrically uniform, right? So all this is considered. Yes, and you can get to a point where you can say, we need to rewind this machine. Not next week because it's down. You know, again, the goal is to say, to trend it and to say, look, let's put it in our budget. We'll get a price for it and budgetary price, and we'll put it in 2025 if that's the case, right? And then you can have this planned approach,
Right.
which is always better than, then you can take it down during dry times.
Yeah.
All those things that come into play that say this is
So-
the right way to do it.
Another, you keep talking about the generator. That generator's rated at 2.8 megawatts, and we were pumping 3.2 out of it.
I guess that's
That's a whole nother,
kind of where I was going with that.
yeah, that's a whole nother issue that we have to
Yeah.
address. Are you excited about, you know, generating more electricity, but you're adding more heat, you're adding more
And what are
issues
you're
with the generator.
learning more on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't
what
have
is
the
it?
wagon going faster than the horse.
No.
Right.
What is our cost usually when we do the tests every 3 years?
testing?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's not very much.
yeah, it's a couple,
can't remember.
$3,000-$4,000.
Yeah, I can't remember what.
But here's an example, getting back to what Candy's question was about the preventative side of things. So you say, now, let's say we did those tests, and you find out, we got a problem. Well, what can you do? Well, preventative, right? How can we get the car to run a little longer? Cleaning is one of the best things you can do for a generator because you're minimizing the heat. You know, you remove the dirt and you allow the insulation to work as good as it should and cool itself like it should. So guess what? We're going to clean it again next year. Again, because you can't afford to spend that amount of money, right? So you get into this, again, it's all about trying to minimize your risk. So we can extend it a little longer by keeping it clean. Now, you just did clean it, but I'm just giving you a what-if scenario. What if you do have something that you say is really, but you can't afford to do it? Well, you change it in a car, right? If you really got a bad, if mechanically it's really bad, you're going to be changing the oil more often, right? It's something you can do to help you mitigate the risk and get you another year or two, right? So that's this whole preventative program. And you can imagine down there at the plant, there's no end to the types of things that can be done, right? In terms of cleaning and conditioning and trying to get the car to run a little longer. However, it has to be organized or categorized in a way that you could say, you know what, I don't have time to oil that today. It's okay, because I'm spending my time over here. That can fail, this can't, right? So that's kind of what this is all designed to do as well, right?
It's always
Give you
been
the upgrade picture, priority, risk, right? But also the preventative program, because the guys just, they don't have time to do everything, right? But they need some direction to say, for the time you are spending.
This is
okay,
what needs to be.
do these things first. And the other things, it's okay, let them fail. We'll replace them. No big deal.
And
This-
thank you for, you know, answering the questions. I really appreciate you doing that. It's not a doubt about if we wanted to do it or not, but it's nice that you could answer our questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The more surprises, obviously, we can take off the board, the better, right?
Right, and that's.
From a budget standpoint, from everything.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at.
You're never
There's-
gonna.
Nothing's perfect, there's always gonna be
Never gonna know
surprises.
everything,
Right. But the ones we can identify, that we know are coming up, especially the big dollar ones, let's do that.
Right. Does that answer your question, Brett?
Yes, yes, it does.
Okay. And the same thing is true with runner, cavitation, transformer oil. You get the same sort of, you trend it. You say, look, it's not bad yet. Oh, it is bad. Well, what do we do now? Transformer is 6-9 months sometimes, depending on the type inside, right? Filter it. You can transfuse the you know, and you can get a little more life out of it. Again, that's what this is designed to do, is to help you have a non-crisis approach, of course, but a planned, no surprise, extend the life, spend your limited resources on the things that you know. And at the end of the day, that's all you can do. You only have so much time and resources, financially, manpower, spend it on the things that will continue to keep your assets safe and reliable. Right? That's what this is all about. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
All righty, do I have a motion?
One question
Oh,
first.
all right, that's
Ray, in our budget, where would this sit?
Well, this would be under the professional services, and we don't have it specifically line item earmarked for, but we do have areas that we are well under within that.
Okay.
Yeah, we could,
Yeah, it'll be more than
Okay.
covered.
I motion that we accept the proposal of HCMS in a total of $15,000 to put together the risk-based capital budget and the improved preventive maintenance program.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Moraro?
Yes.
Yeah, that's for items 1 through 3 on the scope there.
We'll move on to the
Thanks,
approval.
Scott.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks, Scott.
Hang on, I want to clarify, because the motion included, the motion referenced and included the preventive maintenance program. Mr. Comblundi was making, I think, it had a point to make sure it was clarified, it was numbers 1 through 3.
Yes.
Understood by the council?
Yes.
Yes.
It's on-site review, equipment assessment, and hydro plant capital budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Now we'll get together with the
thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Scott.
Scott.
Good night.
Move on to the approval, Department of Public Works Equipment Purchase Request, Steamer.
Okay, this particular line item is something we talked about last year in budget hearings. It is a budgeted item, and the current steamer is from mid-60s, and it needs to be certified under steam boiler, and the question is whether it can even be certified anymore. So from a safety standpoint, we talked about last year of replacing that steamer. We actually, the county has had a steamer that they purchased last year that the guys tested. We retested again this year, and we're asking for approval to purchase a new steamer from Champion Charter for a price not to exceed $17,907.05.
Did we have more than one bid on this?
This is a specialty item, and there was no, I mean, when you look around, there wasn't a second
Person to-
equally, yeah, that we could get a second quote. It wasn't even like quoting, I mean, this was almost like a design build to suit.
Ray, this is a dealer, this is a dealership, correct? They don't build it, it's Landa, is the actual manufacturer?
That's correct.
What do we know about Landa?
Well, we know the county has their equipment, and they're very happy with it.
Okay.
That's who turned us on to this last year, and we were really struggling with what we were going to do with that old steamer.
Did you
And-
test theirs, David, last year?
Every year, our boiler gets inspected, we take the front face off, the inspector comes, looks in the pipes. The model that we're dealing with right now boils the water, makes steam pressure. Pressure goes up to 150 PSI, that's boiling water inside that jacket. What you're looking at now is a hot water pressure washer on a trailer with 300 gallons of water, injecting hot water into the ground, which is safer to deal than the steam boiler we currently. If our pressure relief valve fails on that steamer, you have a bomb, it's going on. 150 PSI it builds, so it's, pipes can crack, pipes can break. Is the inside that pipe liner gonna stay good? Probably not, it's gonna fail eventually. If it does, you're out of the boiler. You cannot get it fixed in Michigan. If it does, it's below the bridge to take it. If you go to Wisconsin and you get it fixed down in Madison, as the boiler people, they will not certify it for state of Michigan because of changed rules coming over to Florida. Back to the age of the unit that we're dealing with, Ray said about 1960, I think it's 1956 model. that we are currently using. So I think we have a life expectancy. Safety-wise, you're gonna have a hot water injector with a hose pushing hot water in, you know, similar to pressure washer. It doesn't build up that steam pressure that we're dealing with. Safety-wise, it's a big factor.
And you used, did you try the counties last year?
Yes, we just did the counties on Saginaw Street where we were by the Holy Spirit School. They came down last week, injected into the ground and shoved the hose through where we couldn't get the steamer pipe through because the injector has a head on it. Once it's pushing water, it pulls itself in. So it's a similar like a rodder type hose. It's a half-inch hose, rodders into the pipe, pulls itself through, and then, you know, it works a lot easier than when we just shove a hose in, it's 1-inch braided hose. We use pipes to go through culverts with the current one. We were unable to get through on Saginaw Street, and that's probably 200 some feet. And we were, both directions, we couldn't get through, and they came in one end, put that machine in, and it jetted all the way up in and opened up the pipe.
Do you see any instances where the steamer is gonna still need to be used at all?
I would hold the steamer until we, you know, it's gonna get inspected, we'll hold on to it just for the time being, but after this, once this unit is here, because it's not gonna be built right now, it's gonna be manufactured.
Yes.
So you're looking for this whole season, we'll still have the old one. Hopefully have it in-house next year. That steamer we have is done. You will not get certified, serviced, or anything anymore. It'd be basically scrapped out, it's not safe for everybody.
And you won't need any inspections on this new one, any state type of inspection?
No, it's just a pressure washer under the hoses inspections that we do in-house. We ordered the extra fittings, base unit is around 16 by the time we figured out the extra hose, the extra nozzle tips that we were looking at for cutting and jetting. That's what we're running. So this whole unit will be self-contained on the trailer, similar to any steam pressure washer, hot pressure washer that you see in the building. That's the design of it, works off diesel fuel and heats up the water. That heats up the water as you use it. So safety is way safer than we would currently use. I mean, there's been incidents where you wonder if it's going to.
Has there been many issues this year on this drains freezing up?
We had everything open, and last week Main Street froze right over here in the parking lot, across the street. We thought we steamed that one. We steamed, like I said, a couple culverts, some areas, but most of this year was less frost. But we froze the other last week, I believe, right over here by City Hall, and that was open and draining all winter, and it froze last week. So, well, if it trickles in, and there was 3 feet of frost in our roadways, if it trickles and builds that ice up, you run into this. So, but yeah, the system that you have now is by far a lot better unit we could get.
To the mayor's point, I'm not overly thrilled when we see one bid come through. I understand that this is a bit of a special type piece of equipment. David, is this common in most municipalities in the north? A piece of gear like this in counties?
Yes, the county is probably running 2 units or 3 units of this. We got to discuss that with them. Where do you go to look for something like this? It's limited on who's manufacturing. It's going to come on its own trailer, all set to go. And this is the only unit I've seen in the area by a manufacturer. We didn't get approached by a salesman to come in. We were out searching to find something to better upgrade ourselves. So that's the only thing I've seen so far around here.
Thanks.
If there ain't any other questions, do I have a motion?
It's in the budget, isn't it, Ray?
It's 407 up, it's just 407 over.
Yeah.
I make a motion that Champion Charter be approved to provide a steamer to the city of Norway for a price not to exceed $17,907.05.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes?
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
We have no one in the audience. We'll move on to mayor council comments. Scott?
I'd just like to put out in the community, take this coronavirus serious, what you're reading, you're hearing stories, you know, that it's a joke, that it's all government and everything else. Please look into the facts. This is a serious, and look into the elder. Think of others, not just yourself when you're doing things.
Brett?
I have none.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Tim Brew for his service. I know he's been here a lot of years, and wish him a happy retirement. I also would like to talk about the coronavirus a bit. I would just like to tell the people to stay vigilant, don't panic, but stay vigilant. Follow the best practices that are coming out of your health departments and your state, local, federal governments, and be patient, day at a time, and like all things, this too shall pass.
Lee?
It's, lots of things going on this month. I got a few comments here. The first one, I don't think we can do anything about it. The tree sales are very minimal this year, eh?
Yeah, they're low this year.
So it doesn't look like we're gonna get any, eh?
Well, we're gonna look and see what we need.
Is there a minimum order?
There's no minimum order.
Okay, because I know, we had talked about putting them on the boulevards, because some places, or I should say not on the boulevard, in the people's yards, because some of the boulevards can't take a tree. I would even be willing to discuss that you could actually, if somebody wants it, go actually into their yard and put it between the houses, as long as it can be seen from the road. But it might be too late for that, because I think they did it on, what, March 20th?
Well,
I would be all for that anyway,
Yeah.
or talk about it, But like I said, it might be too late for it. Oh, well. It was a real good turnout for the primary and the 6 proposals. The city had 624 voters. That's a lot for a primary like that. And Happy St. Earl's Day. The Finlanders are having their party today. St. Patrick's Day tomorrow, but all the bars are closed. I had to throw that in there.
On my birthday.
Okay, and March 19th is supposed to be the first day of spring. Well, don't hold your breath on that one. Now on a, excuse me, on a little more serious scale here, National Vietnam War Veterans Day. 2 years ago, President Trump signed into law the Vietnam War Veterans Recognition Act of 2017, establishing a National Vietnam War Veterans Day that will be observed every 29th of March in perpetuity. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., known as the Wall, will again and always have a significant role in our nation's honoring of Vietnam War veterans on March 29th. The Wall is an arresting reminder to more than 5 million annual visitors of the service and sacrifice of more than 58,000 Americans. There is something haunting, cleansing, and healing about this haloed site, and we encourage every American to experience it. On that day, maybe we can just all reflect for a moment of silence for those 58,000 who lost their lives and their families. Norway lost 3 sons in that war. That's all I have.
Thank you, Lee.
Thanks. I also would like to congratulate Mr. Brew on his retirement and thank him for his years of service to the city. Also with the virus going around and that, I just want to echo, let's not panic. Let's just keep updated with the government and the federal laws and see what goes on. And if you got elderly people that don't want to leave the house and, they don't want to leave, be a helping hand.
Yeah.
Just let's help each other and we'll all get through this.
Well, I forgot one thing. Don't watch your 4OK.
Ray?
Okay, so, to continue with, some coronavirus, or CV-19, COVID-19 discussion. We met today with, Health Department, hospital, county emergency management, and the cities, townships. We met to discuss what the unifying role is in of course, this emergency situation. And I think the bottom line is that, question comes out as to what individual municipalities do. Well, we follow the emergency management program and protocol of the county, and the county follows with the state. And so, we follow those protocols, and that's why we had the meeting this morning. The health department is driving agency that helps coordinate along with Mr. Slitt in his office at Emergency Management. But the bottom line is that, they give strong recommendations about businesses. Of course, the governor came out and made her proclamation. But from the county health department standpoint is that they highly recommended that, we evaluate and eliminate a non-essential service contact. So, effective immediately, unless there's disagreement, the cities are going to basically close City Hall front doors. I'll close a walk-in business. Of course, we're going to be here, we're going to be working, we can call for assistance, but when you pay your bills in the Dropbox. You can pay them through the branches of the Northern Interstate Bank. If the bank decides to close its front doors, they are going to, at least we're told, they're going to keep the drive-in windows open, so you still have options, but again, and you can also call in and pay through credit card or debit cards. So that was one of the directions that we discussed this morning. And also, when it comes to information, because this changes hourly, it seems like it's updated hourly, we want to make sure that there's a constant, a unified message and an accurate message, because there's a lot of misinformation that goes out wherever you hear it. So the city's going to have on its webpage contact information. The CDC has a coronavirus page, cdc.gov/coronavirus. The main area that we want to focus on, or have you go to, is michigan.gov/coronavirus. Again, that's going to be highlighted on our webpage. Also, the Michigan Municipal League has a section that's mml.org, so you could go there. But we're going to have it on our webpage. So if you have any questions, you can, if you got access to the internet, go to our City of Norway webpage. It should be on the front page where you can hit these links. That's your best form of information. Of course, we'll try to answer any questions if you called in, but we're going to probably direct you that direction anyway, just because we want to make sure you get the most current and up-to-date information.
And accurate.
And accurate, absolutely. So I don't know if there's any questions on that. We spent a lot of time talking about how we were going to handle and how we handle the incidents issues. I think the countywide management is, they've got their finger on it. I think I was confident in going through the meeting today that they were on top of it, and that's basically how we're managing this situation at this point. So
Is that it?
that's what I have. Yep.
Grant?
Nothing, thank you.
Girls? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mr. Menghini?
Yes.
Mr. Mararo?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes. Meeting adjourned.